Hello everyone, it's me, Fake, and today we're talking about one of my most beloved games of all time. A tale of revenge, high stakes, emotional bonds, and of course, forklift driving. That's right, I'm talking about Shenmue. Of course, you knew that because you saw the title and thumbnail. Now look, I'm about to spend the rest of this video showing love for a game that I absolutely adore. But this isn't just going to be me gushing about how great Shenmue is. Instead, I want to look at how one of my favorite games has aged over all this time. 27 years later, and the game's age certainly shows. There's odd pacing, clunky combat, and middling dialogue and voice acting, and they've definitely made the game age poorly in some areas. But honestly, none of that really matters to me. I know there's a remaster of this game available too, but I feel it's important that we look at the game from its original build and understand what made it so great, but also what issues it had. I'm here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of Shenmue. Shenmue begins with our main character, Ryo Hazuki, sprinting toward his family home. As he approaches the entrance, he finds the family sign broken and a black car out front. When Ryo arrives in the dojo, he finds his father in a standoff with a menacing Lan Di, a Chinese man looking for a mirror, and he knows your father has it. After both you and your father get your asses kicked, Lan Di threatens your father by saying he will kill Ryo. Ryo's father concedes and tells him where the mirror is. Lan Di then knocks down Ryo's father and leaves Ryo to watch as his father dies in his arms. It's pretty heavy stuff for the beginning of the game. Now, the game can finally begin. It's time for Ryo to set out and avenge his father's death at the hands of Lan Di. This is where the world of Shenmue starts to open. Ryo starts at the Hazuki residence, but before long Ryo's going to see the small town charm of locations like, and excuse my terrible pronunciation, Sakuragaoka, Dobuita, and the new Yokosuka Harbor. But let's not get ahead of ourselves yet. The game does a good job of showing off each section by having specific little events to allow Ryo to talk to the locals, his friends, and random strangers that show off the world before sending you to the next location. You'll help a small girl with a kitten she found, help an old lady find the house she's looking for, or just chat with the folks hanging around town. Shenmue is full of these events that help flesh out the world but do not have any real impact on the overarching story. For example, helping the little girl feed the cat when you are first introduced to the story beat. You can come back throughout the game and feed the cat, allowing it to heal, and this adds cutscenes into the game that you might otherwise miss. Do they impact the story? No. Does it give you any worthwhile bonuses? Also no. But it helps create the sense of realness that games hadn't really reached at this point. Much like real life, your contributions to the world may not have any big payoff, but it's the simple fact that you're doing them that makes the game feel realistic. Also, you can pet the cat. I'm not sure if this is the first instance of petting the animal in gaming, but it had to have been an early adopter. So once Ryo helps feed the cat, he can head into Sakuragaoka to ask about the car that was seen outside his house the day his father died. Asking around informs Ryo that the car was seen heading toward Dobuita. This is where you will spend most of your time in Disc 1 and 2. Dobuita is a city, I guess. It's the biggest area you will see for most of the game, but it still has a small town feel to it. Multiple shops, bars, and restaurants line the streets, and the streets themselves are open and easy to navigate, as well as being home to multiple residents you can stop and talk to. Sadly, most of these interactions are nothing more than someone telling Ryo that they don't have time to talk. Everyone's too busy for your revenge plan, so Ryo will have to enter establishments or speak to the folks standing outside their businesses to get any real information. Ryo asks around if anyone saw the black car on the day his father passed. After talking to multiple people, you will learn that the girl at the flower shop got splashed with mud when the car drove by. This is where Ryo meets the love interest of this story, your classmate Nozomi. Now, here's one of the first complaints I have about a game I love so much. Depending on how you play this game, you may rarely interact with Nozomi unless certain actions are taken to cause certain story events. When I played this game for the first time as a kid, I was so confused as to why Nozomi was part of the story as I interacted with her so little. She pops up throughout the story in moments you can't miss, but she still feels tacked on because the story needed a love interest for Ryo. Nozomi seems like nothing more than a MacGuffin, but I'll get to that a little later in the video. For now, Ryo visits Nozomi to get more information. She'll point you to Tom at the hot dog cart, who apparently had an argument with the men in the black car. We go to meet up with Tom, and he tells us that the men were Chinese, and that Ryo should go ask Chinese people. Thanks, Tom. I look forward to ignoring you completely until the end of the game. It's the same problem I have with Nozomi and many characters to come. Tom is supposed to be a close friend, but Ryo rarely speaks to him to progress the game, unless you just want to say what's up to the hot dog homie every day. I want to use this as an example of what makes this game feel so real, though. While there are people in your life that you care about, they may not always play the biggest part in your day-to-day life. Ryo has a lot of friends in the game, but you can go most of the game without talking to them past their necessary interactions. Anyways, let's go find someone Chinese to find out more. Ryo speaks to the owner of the local Chinese restaurant, who tells us about the Three Blades, a set of ancient professions that most Chinese immigrants in the area are involved in: the barber, the tailor, and the cook. Talking to people with these three professions in Dobuita leads us to learning that the Chinese cartel works out of the nearby harbor, and that maybe sailors would have more information. And you may have seen the meme, but this section of the game brought us the "Do you know where sailors hang out?", where Ryo asks anyone and everyone where he might find sailors. Tom says they hang out at bars, so we make our way to a local bar at night. You can go to a different bar and make a bet on a pool game to get the information you need, but you can also just go straight to the correct bar without the need for the minigame. Arriving there instigates a series of QTE events both outside and inside the bar. I guess I should stop here and speak about my thoughts on QTEs so Ryo can move past it. Shenmue was not the first game to implement QTEs. For example, Dragon's Lair, the hit Laserdisc arcade game, was nothing but QTEs. However, Shenmue really brought QTEs to the forefront of video game interactivity, and I believe was the influence to QTEs existing in the games we play today. Am I a fan of QTEs? Not really. I feel like they're often used as a crutch when developers aren't sure how to handle working in specific events where giving complete control to the player is not a viable option, but they want to keep interactivity. With that said, am I a fan of QTEs in Shenmue? Yes. It was a brand new form of interaction for many gamers of the time, myself included. I think they're used well enough and not so frequently that they ruin the immersion. Most of the QTEs allow for an occasional miss, but there are some that will result in a failure, causing you to have to restart the QTE from the beginning. Luckily, most of the QTEs in the game are short 1 to 3 button presses, at least for now. So, a few QTE events and some shit talking later, they tell Ryo that he should be looking for a man named Charlie. Ryo can talk to the guy outside the motorcycle shop near the bar, who tells us that the poser Charlie usually causes trouble at the local jacket shop. We'll have to come back the next day as the shop is closed, so Ryo heads home to go to sleep. His room is where we can save and sleep after 8 p.m. It's kind of annoying that it's the only place you can save the game, but I understand that was just a design decision, mostly due to technical storage limitations. No quick saves in the world of Shenmue. The next day, Ryo can head down to the jacket shop to learn that Charlie doesn't come around to Dobuita until nighttime, which in this game is after 7 p.m. And I have to stop here and talk about the interludes when night hits. Once time hits 7 p.m., a short cutscene is played. I absolutely love the small snippets of moving shots, showcasing wherever you are currently located, scored by one of my favorite tracks from the game. I'm going to play a quick snippet of it real quick so you get the idea. Now that it's nighttime, Ryo can head to look for Charlie. He's soon met by the same guys we beat up outside the bar the day before, and they just want to talk around the corner, but what they really want to do is fight. And this brings us to our first free battle. Okay, how do I talk about free battles? Free battles are just that, a battle where you have free control and motion of Ryo in combat. Kind of. Have you ever played the Virtua Fighter series? I'm definitely sounding old mentioning those games, but the fighting style is pretty much the same. For the time, it felt clean and fun to throw out kicks, punches, and the assortment of cool power moves and combos that you obtain later in the game. Sadly, after almost 30 years, the combat can feel clunky, unresponsive, and frustrating. This isn't always the case, but a lot of combats involve Ryo fighting groups of thugs at one time, and boy can it get annoying. In certain instances, no matter how hard you try to pull off powerful moves or combos, you'll end up getting hit in the back by some other random enemy. As a kid, I would just brute force these encounters by dodging constantly and punching and kicking whenever the window to do so was open, albeit a small window. And don't even get me started on the fact that some enemies can just swat away attacks, leaving you defenseless. One of my favorite free combat moves is a triple roundhouse-like kick you have from the start of the game, but it almost never fully connects as the enemy most likely will swat away one of the kicks before it finishes. Throughout the game, you'll be taught new moves by people you meet or know already, like Tom. These can be helpful in combat as the story progresses, but they are very hard to actually pull off, and most of the time you end up just kicking or punching, which leads to you getting assaulted by the gangs of people you're fighting. Again, I never really learned the intricacies of the combat, so please don't take this opinion too seriously. I'm sure I could be better at it, but I still feel like the limitations of technology at the time left this feature feeling a little rough around the edges. Now let's go back to the story for a bit. After absolutely destroying these drunk morons, you get some information about Charlie in a tattoo parlor. Guess it's time to start asking around about that now. Luckily, we've seen some bikers around Dobuita who have tattoos. You can find them in the arcade in the evening, and good news, they want you to join their gang, but you have to get a tattoo first. This gives Ryo exactly what he needs, as the bikers will tell you where the parlor is and to go there tomorrow. It's all we can do for today, so let's head home and rest up. Next day, Ryo needs to head to the tattoo parlor where he runs into the same guys from the bar again. They are terrified of Ryo, which I always like scenes like this where it shows how capable and terrifying Ryo can be even if he's just a teenager. You're told Charlie is asleep in the back. After whipping back the curtain and almost getting stabbed, Ryo gets Charlie to tell him more about the cartel and offers to take Ryo to meet them. On the way out, Ryo runs into Nozomi again, who is very right to be worried about what Ryo's been doing. Of course, Ryo plays it off as nothing, and Nozomi is none the wiser. Probably. Ryo will have to wait until tomorrow though, so it's plenty of free time to buy capsule toys or talk to people in town. I'll take another brief recess from the story to talk about free time between story events where Ryo can truly interact with the world around him. You can play games at the arcade like Space Harrier, Hang On, Darts, or a QTE minigame. You can practice your free combat moves. You can go to the convenience store and buy food and tapes. And if you spend time exploring places like the Hazuki residence, you can find all sorts of cool items to pick up or just inspect. This was one of the biggest known features that Shenmue touted when it was released. Games had not seen this micro level of detail in world interactivity before, at least to my knowledge, and I'm not looking it up either. Around that time, someone told you something and you just had to believe it. Look, I know it may sound boring to some, but going around and exploring the house and finding random items and secrets is so fun to me. In my playthrough for capturing the game footage, I skipped doing most of this exploring, but it doesn't diminish how important it is. But as a kid, I loved buying capsule toys, playing Space Harrier, and practicing my combat skills in the parking lot. If you have never played this game, I implore you to explore the world as much as you can when you have free time in the game. You'll be astounded by how much there is to do. So before Ryo heads to meet Charlie, Ine-san gives you a letter that arrived for your father a few days after he died. Ryo learns that the letter is in Chinese, so it looks like he will need to find someone to translate it for us. Ryo can do that after he meets with Charlie. On our way to meet him, Ryo runs into a child who claims some thugs took his soccer ball, and it turns out to be Charlie and his goons looking for payback for roughing him up yesterday. Time for another free battle where Ryo fights Charlie and his boys. And after you finish them off in a free battle, Ryo's given one of my favorite QTEs of the game. A simple button press sends the kid's soccer ball right into Charlie's face, knocking him out. I love that one. It's just so simple, but so funny at the same time. The boy thanks us in Chinese, and I wonder if he might be able to help, but he runs off before we can ask him. Luckily, in Dobuita, you can run into the boy again, and he will point you to his grandma's china shop. The owner will thank you for helping her grandson, and in return will help you read the letter you received. Turns out no one has been able to read it because it's written in reverse. She holds it up to the mirror and reads out, "Beware those who seek the mirror. If you ever need help, seek the aid of Master Chin." Along with the message is a phone number and a pair of words: Father's Heaven, 9 Dragons, Mother's Earth, Comrades. Now I guess it's time Ryo should call the number and see who picks up. It's the 80s though, so Ryo's stuck using a rotary phone, and boy is using this thing a lesson in patience. I grew up at a time where you could still find the occasional rotary phone at like a friend's grandparents', but they were not very common. The issue in using one is that if you mess up the number you were dialing, you must hang up and dial again. And this is just as true in Shenmue. If you miss one number, you're hanging up and dialing it all again. It's realistic, but terribly annoying. Though, I guess that adds another point to the game, maintaining how real everything feels. It would ruin the immersion a bit if I could just press B and delete the numbers. Ryo dials the number and is greeted with one of the keywords from the letter, Father's Heaven. We respond with 9 dragons. They respond with Mother's Earth. And we respond with Comrades. Warehouse number 8 is all the info Ryo's given after this, and it leaves him wondering what could that mean. After some searching through the phone book, Ryo finds the area code of Amihama, but isn't sure where that is. We ask Tom, and he lets us know that Amihama is the harbor nearby. So it's time for Ryo to hop on the bus and head to the harbor, thus ending Disc 1. So let's talk real quick about the good and the bad of Disc 1 before we head to the harbor. I think the game does a great job of introducing us to this little slice of Japan that Ryo will be inhabiting for the rest of the game. You can explore each location as much as you would like, while also starting to unravel the mysteries of the main story. I like the small town feel of Sakagoroika and the bustling streets of Dobuita. Sadly, there are sections of each location that are just shuttered storefronts and people with very little to say. I guess that is kind of realistic in a way. If I were to just stop a stranger on the street to ask them where sailors hang out, they would probably also tell me they didn't have time to talk to me, because that's the best answer you could give to a crazy person approaching you to ask about sailors. But I can't look over the fact that true connections with these characters, especially including the ones Ryo's supposed to be close to, can be missed or hold little weight. I know part of this is due to technical limitations. I mean, the game's already 3 discs. If everyone had a big part to play in the story, the game would be 20 discs. Ryo's also introduced to QTEs and free battles. Both work for what they were, albeit free battle feels a little clunky and unresponsive after replaying it, and as a kid I remember it feeling that way too, so I can't really just blame that on passing of time. Speaking of time, it's time for us to move on to Disc 2 and see what the harbor holds for Ryo. Ryo arrives in the harbor just in time to find a man being bullied by 2 guys. One of them we'll come to interact with a few times, Goro. And after a quick QTE, Goro lets us know where to find warehouse number 8. After heading to the warehouse, Ryo is stopped by the guard who tells him that he's not allowed in, meaning that we have to discover a new way into the warehouse. Lucky for us, there are some crates behind the warehouse we can use to climb in. Once Ryo is inside, he overhears 2 workers discussing how the orders were mixed up and that they should have gone to old warehouse number 8, not the one we're currently in. Well, guess it's time to mosey over to the old warehouse district, and of course they won't let us in either. Whatever happened to letting a curious teenager into an old building? I'm sure nothing bad has ever come from that. Looks like Ryo will once again have to wait until nighttime. Now, this is one of my least favorite segments of the game. While Ryo's able to enter the old warehouse district at night, guards are patrolling the area, and if they catch him, Ryo has to come back the next night, meaning you lose an entire day. Luckily, it will just start you back at the guard avoiding segment immediately, which is nice. Once we've avoided the guards and made it to Warehouse 8, we're met by a young Chinese man who questions why Ryo's there. Ryo says he is looking for Master Chen, who suddenly appears looking dapper as hell, if I do say so myself. Ryo will give Master Chen the letter and he will agree to help you. And this is where we learn that there are actually 2 mirrors. The Dragon Mirror that Lan Di took, and the Phoenix Mirror that your father might have also had in his possession. and it's up to us to find the mirror, and that's all that can be done for the day, so it's time to go back home and save and sleep. The next day, Ryo needs to investigate where his father might have hidden the Phoenix mirror. Now, remember how the game gives you so many little things you can pick up and interact with? Well, it's time to put that feature to use by searching through Ryo's home for any clues. Looking through his father's belongings, he finds a small key. Wonder what it could go to. Well, Ryo's dad did spend a lot of time in the dojo, so let's go there. I must say that the story beats I'm going through are being done as someone who has played this game many times before. If you don't know to go look in Ryo's father's room or go to the dojo, you'll have to just search around aimlessly until you find the next step. There are short notes given to Ryo in his notebook, but they are more hints than outright instructions most of the time. No map markers or yellow paint to guide your way. There's a box in the dojo where the key fits, and it holds a hiltless sword, which confuses Ryo. Why would a sword have no hilt? Well, it's because it fits in the wall hidden behind scrolls. Unfortunately, there is another indent on the wall, and Ryo doesn't have anything to place there. Let's go talk to Ine-san and see what she knows. She doesn't know about the Phoenix mirror, but she does know Ryo's father left something in storage at the antique store in Dobuita. So let's head to the antique store. The owner will talk about Ryo's father a bit, and then give him the item from storage. A sword handguard. Hey, that's what we were looking for. On our way home, we run into the young man who was with Master Chen, his son Guizhang, where we enter a quick free battle. After that, Guizhang says that he has been assigned as our bodyguard, which is cool and all if he actually did any bodyguarding, that is. I mean, he does later, but we'll get into that in Disc 3. The reason I'm bringing up this rather pointless exchange is because, as Ryo's talking to Guizhang, a creepy, bald monster of a man is watching us from the rooftops. He is definitely not on our side. So, who is he? Well, you'll see soon enough, and I hate him, by the way. This guy sucks. Arriving back at the dojo, we can place the sword handguard into the wall. Whoa, revolving door. Pops was definitely hiding something here, so let's go investigate. Ryo makes his way into the basement of the dojo, where after some searching and an axe swing into the wall, he finds the Phoenix mirror. There's a funny scene when you come back upstairs where Ryo shows Fukusan the mirror, and he gets all creeped out by it, and Ryo's like, dude, chill, it's all good. I'm only realizing now I haven't really mentioned Fukusan yet, so let me speak on him real quick. He's a student of your father's and lives at the Hazuki residence with you. He's part comic relief, part reliant friend of Ryo. I'll mention him a few more times in the story, so let's move on. Ryo takes the Phoenix mirror to Master Chen, where he gets some background into the mirrors and what they are capable of. The legend goes that when the dragon ascends and the Phoenix descends, the gates of heaven and earth will open and the ancient Chinese monster Chiyu will be resurrected to devour the earth. And you mean to tell me that both these mirrors that can bring the end of the earth were just sitting in the basement of the dojo and buried under the tree next to our house? Okay, whatever you say, boss. Suddenly, the chat is interrupted by the skinhead freak we saw watching us from the rooftop earlier. This is Chai, and I'll say it again, this guy sucks. He snatches the mirror and jumps onto a crane platform to escape. Luckily, Ryo has QTE powers, and one left D-pad hit later, the platform sways and Chai loses the mirror, allowing Ryo to grab the mirror back. Chai dips after this, and I wish I never had to see him again, but sadly we will see him again soon. Ryo asks Master Chen for help chasing Lan Di to Hong Kong after Guizhang mentions that this is where he's most likely headed, but is told not to waste his life on revenge. That's not going to stop us though. For now, let's go home and rest up. In the morning, Ryo checks his bank statement only to realize he is far from being able to afford a flight to Hong Kong. He talks to Ine's son about going on vacation in an effort to maybe find some financial help. Too bad it's ruined by Fukusan telling her your actual plans to get revenge for your father's death. Thanks, Fukusan. Big help. Looks like it's time to head to Dobuita and find out how we can make it to Hong Kong. Find our way over to the travel agency, where it turns out the cheapest ticket to Hong Kong is 200,000 yen, and Ryo isn't even close to having that much. Let's go back to the house and find Fukusan to ask for some help. There's a scene you can get on your way home where the kitten you've been feeding has gone missing. If you take the time to find the kitten, you'll get another little scene with Nozomi, building their awkward relationship a little more. The thing is, if you haven't been feeding the cat, you won't see this scene. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I don't like that certain things can just be missed, and I can't just keep saying that it's something that makes it realistic to excuse everything I don't like about the game. I feel like scenes like this shouldn't have been locked behind a side quest you can completely ignore on accident. Maybe I'm the one they leave yellow paint and quest logs for? Oh my god. So when we talk to Fukusan back at home, he's kind enough to give us the money in his piggy bank. However, it doesn't get Ryo much closer to the 200,000 yen he needs. Fukusan says we should ask Nozomi, whose family travels to Canada. Maybe she'll know a cheaper way. Nozomi mentions that we could take a boat to Hong Kong. Her grandmother doesn't like to fly, so they have to take a boat when she travels with them. We head back to the travel agency, where Ryo learns that they don't sell boat tickets, but the agent tells us about another travel agency who does sell boat tickets, but also advises against using them as they are quite shady. We really don't have another choice, so let's head over to get scammed. Get a boat ticket. Ryo's greeted by a real winner of a travel agent. She doesn't really want to help us, and she takes our money and tells us to come back in a few hours. After a few hours of waiting, Ryo re-enters the agency, but the girl's gone and replaced with, oh my god, what is that bowl cut? Anyways, after enough questioning, the gentlemen in the office pick a fight with Ryo. After once again letting those fools know who the fuck we are told we can get the ticket tomorrow and to wait for his phone call. The next day, we receive the phone call to meet the agent at U Arcade around noon, so let's head there now. When Ryo enters the arcade, it is awfully quiet and empty. But surprise, it's not empty. That bald son of a bitch is back and eats our ticket? Great. It's at this point we are thrown into one of the most frustrating free battles in the game. Chai does not play fair. If I were to put it in terms of another game, he's the odd job of Shenmue. You know, the guy from GoldenEye 007 on the N64 that was a cheat code to winning multiplayer matches because he was shorter than all the other characters. I use that reference because Chai does not just stand up and take your punches and kicks like most enemies. He stays low to the ground, kicks, punches, flips, and blocks like no enemy you fought before. Not to mention you're in this tiny arcade area with very little space to move. It is possible to beat him, but it's not an easy task. I tend to just let him kick my ass because it's much easier and the time loss is insignificant. You just lose the last half of the day. You also get a scene of Fukusan rushing into the arcade to save Ryo and take him home to rest up, which is nice. He may be annoying, but Fukusan a real one for sure. The next day, Ryo heads back to the travel agency to find the bowl cut freak holing up inside. He tries to run off, leading to one of the longer QTEs in the game, a chase through Dobuita. I like this one a lot. Ryo finally catches up after bowl cut almost gets hit by a truck. And just like that, it's time for the final disc of Shenmue. Now, Disc 2 is much more action-packed than Disc 1. There are more free battles, more QTEs, and fun segments like finding the Phoenix Mirror. There's a lot to do in this disc. If I have one complaint though, there are certainly some sections that are pretty straightforward or involve just sitting and waiting for time to pass. But I hope you're excited for Disc 3 because we are closing in on the end of the game and some of my favorite moments.
I'm sorry. An employee ran off with the money. Please don't hurt me. I got a wife and kids.
Disc 3 begins right where Disc 2 left off, with Ryo dragging Bowl Cut back to the travel agency. He admits that he's broke and is getting ready to run off to get away from the Mad Angels, the gang behind all the shady business around town. He doesn't know how to contact them, but tells Ryo that he can find out more if he got a job at the harbor where they are based. That's right, boys and girls, it's time to get a job. Ryo heads to the harbor, spending time asking about potential jobs where he's turned down and ignored by everyone. That is until we run into Goro again. You remember Goro, the guy we beat up during our first trip to the harbor? Well, he is delighted to see us and even mentions he can hook Ryo up with a job. So let's just wait around until the next day. The next day, Ryo meets with Goro to find out that he has a job. Now, this part of the game can be very divisive as some people really like the working section of the game, while some might think it's boring and dull. Here's the thing, you don't have to do the work. You only need to hit event triggers. Ryo will be driving a forklift, moving crates from one warehouse to another repeatedly for a few days as he investigates the Mad Angels and their connection to Lan Di. After a quick driving tutorial from our new pal Mark, it's time to get to work. After the day of work concludes, we are stopped by Mark, who tells Ryo to come in early tomorrow. I wonder what that could be about. But before heading home, we need to do our good deed for the day. Ryo encounters 2 men on motorcycles who happen to be mad angels harassing a harbor hobo. Ryo stops them and is challenged to a game of chicken. This leads to a quick QTE event, which, if done successfully, will lead to the other cyclists falling into the ocean. And that's all we can do for the day, so time to go home and rest up. We have to be up and ready for an early day. Now, if you've never played Shenmue, I'd like you to take a guess on why you think Ryo needs to show up for work early. You think it's A, mandatory HR training, B, more forklift training, C, meeting to sign work documents, or D, a fucking forklift race? Okay, it's D. Every workday starts with a forklift race around the harbor. And this is one of the most Sega-feeling sections of this game. Sure, you can play old Sega titles in the arcade or get Sega characters in the capsule machines. There's something so inherently Sega about the forklift races. I don't know why. Maybe it just feels like a game you would have seen on Sega CD or Sega Saturn. Funny enough, Shenmue was planned to be released on the Sega Saturn before being shifted to the Dreamcast. Now, after each race, Mark will give you a toy forklift depending on your placing in the race. I ended up getting first a couple of times while also getting second and third. You know, not because I didn't drive well by running into walls and boxes, but because I wanted different number forklift toys. Okay? But the race is over and it's time to get to work. I won't spend too much time on the actual specifics of the work needed, as it's just meant to get Ryo to hit event triggers throughout the day. You get a lunch break every day, and during our first lunch break, Ryo sees Mark getting bullied by more Mad Angel members. This leads to a quick free battle, followed by the rest of the lunch break to do whatever we want to do. There isn't a whole lot to do during lunch breaks, but you can buy items at the store, play darts, or even go to a warehouse to practice your free battle moves. After lunch, Ryo's back to work only to be confronted by even more Mad Angels. They want their insurance payment. So what else would Ryo do other than give them a good old-fashioned free battle ass-whooping? After the workday's over, Ryo gets some information on the Mad Angels from Goro, even if he is hesitant to give it to us. But this guy's an absolute cornball and I love him. Ryo also runs into Guizhong and the hobo we helped earlier, who both teach Ryo brand new moves, the Swallow Dive and the Shadow Strike. But that's all for today, so back home to save and rest. It's time for our second day of work, which starts with a race followed by more box moving. Nothing too exciting. Lunchtime rolls around and Nozomi and her friend run into Ryo, and he and Nozomi take a photo together. Ryo, just tell her you love her, man. The 4 scenes we've been together are just oozing affection and love, right? Nozomi breaks the news to Ryo that she's moving to Canada, and he does kind of seem heartbroken. Even through the stiff dialogue, you can tell Ryo is disheartened by this news. But all we can do now is go back to work. There's a scene with Nozomi on your way home this day if it's after Christmas, but since I was blowing through the game, it was too early to see the scene, and there's no way to see it other than on a day after Christmas. As a new player to Shenmue, you will most likely see this scene, as you won't progress quickly enough to reach this point in the game and this early. It's kind of sad that a scene showing more connection between Ryo and Nozomi is locked behind these parameters. I've talked about my dislike for these situations, so let's just move on. The next workday involves a longer route for crate moving, but again, it's not necessary to actually do the work, just hit the trigger for the day. After lunch, Ryo runs into the same 2 idiots he's been beating up throughout the game. I find it funny that the 2 characters Ryo seems to interact with the most are these 2 idiots. Turns out these guys have no idea what the Longjaw is, but their boss Terry knows. After this chase down, Ryo returns to the admin office where he receives a letter from Guizhong. Looks like Master Chen is aware of how much trouble he's been stirring up. The game proceeds to send Ryo to Old Warehouse number 8, where Master Chen is not happy with us and our antics. Chen states that Londi has nothing to do with the Longjaw and that Ryo needs to back off. All we can do now is head home and rest up. We won't be resting tonight though, and you'll see why. At 11:45, Ryo gets up to get some fresh air. In the hallway, we run into Ine-san, who asks if we were with Nozomi. She hasn't returned home yet. Suddenly the phone rings, and I bet you can't guess who is on the other end. It's Chai, and he has Nozomi. We only have 4 hours to get to warehouse number 17. And there's no way we can get there in 4 hours. Looks like Ryo needs to find a ride. Luckily, our friend has a motorcycle. Now, if you're like me, You don't talk to every single NPC in the game, especially in a game like Shenmue where so many people have very little to offer. So I definitely missed this guy at the beginning of the game and therefore had no idea I was supposed to take his motorcycle. As a kid, I was just running around like a chicken with its head cut off. But Ryo secures the bike and we're off to the harbor. This motorcycle section we're coming up on is short, but is tight to the timer. If you screw up and hit a wall or two, you might miss the time limit. If you spend any time playing the game Hang On in the arcade though, it's basically the same. It only took 2 attempts in my playthrough for this video. Once we arrive at the harbor, Ryo's met with 2 free battles against multiple game members. They aren't too bad though. Only one of the guys in each battle takes more than a couple of hits to take down. And after that, Ryo's introduced to the leader of the Mad Angels, Terry. Nozomi is safe and is freed with the promise that Ryo will take out Guizong. And man, things are getting spicy now. Especially because our next scene shows Ryo and Nozomi riding home on the motorcycle. This is the closest and most intimate we have seen the two together. I like this scene and it is scored with the game's only music track with lyrics and vocals. I can't play it for you to avoid copyright, but I can sing it for you. We should go home and rest up. We have a crazy last 2 days ahead. The next morning, Ryo's asked to resign from the warehouse gig because of the trouble that has appeared since he started the job. It's bad for business, our boss says. So it's at this point Ryo's trusty hint book to a note that says check in on everyone. You can call Nozomi and get a sweet yet kind of awkward goodbye between the two. And this is the last we will see of Nozomi in the game, so let's all say goodbye to Nozomi. Bye, Nozomi. Next up is Tom. He will teach us the move Tornado Kick, which is a sweet move that I could almost never pull off in an actual free combat. But after teaching us the move, Tom tells Ryo that he's headed back to America. You know, I'm going to miss Tom. That time he gave us information about sailors, the time he taught us that tornado kick, and yeah, I think that's about it. Everyone say bye, Tom. I find it funny how the note says to check in on everyone, but Ryo only talks to 2 people, and both of them are like, yep, I'm out. Good luck in Hong Kong, bro. I get it's because Ryo will interact with all the other characters before the end of the game, but it's still funny. The goodbyes are cute and all, but it's time to hold up our end of the bargain with Terry and take out Guizong. Hey, look, here he comes now. As the fight begins, Ryo whispers to Guizong to take a fall so the Mad Angels will think Ryo took him out. Guizong doesn't do that, and we have a short free battle ending with both of us laying on the ground, out of breath. Terry appears to take his chance on both Ryo and Guizong. Luckily, we had the power of QTEs again, and one quick right D-pad press later, it's time to take on Terry. But this next free battle is not just against Terry. This next free battle is versus 70 Mad Angels. You heard me right, 70. It is a test of endurance, and honestly one of my least favorite parts combat-wise. I like the idea of having all the Mad Angels come at you like we are storming the castle to get to the king, but sadly it's just waves of guys with a few mid-bosses. Most of them go down in 1 or 2 hits, with the mid-bosses taking a bit more, and the last guy takes way more. We saw this big guy release Nozomi earlier, but now he's here to beat Ryo's ass. The old giant guy after beating all the little guys trope you find in the action movies of the time this game is set in. A nice little touch and homage. But once we're through all that, Terry tries to hit Guizong with a pipe, but in our penultimate QTE of the game, we press A. We relieve Terry of his weapon and get him to talk. Sadly, Landi has already left for Hong Kong. Before we head home though, Guizong states he will talk to his father about getting Ryo to Hong Kong. Now, are you ready for the last day? It is time to wrap up Shenmue. In the morning, Ryo says goodbye to Fuku-san and Ine-san before heading to the harbor. He takes one last look at his home. It's a poignant moment because Ryo's viewing his home with no idea if he'll ever be able to return. Ryo heads to meet up with Master Chen and Guizong, where we are taught the swallow flip. Also, it turns out Ryo isn't going to Hong Kong alone. Guizong is tagging along. But before we can even start planning what to name our new duo, our favorite guy Chai drops a steel beam towards us. Guizong knocks Ryo out of the way and sets up our final free battle of the game. Unlike the arcade fight with Chai earlier in the game, we have a little more room to move around. He's still annoying to fight against, but with perseverance, proper counters, and the heart of a Hazuki, Ryo finally takes him out. Now, following this fight scene, a cutscene plays where Ryo's viewing Lon D looking cool as fuck riding his boat toward Hong Kong. And while Ryo's distracted with how cool Lon D looks, Chai takes his final swings at Ryo during the last QTE of the game. He'll go flying into the water. With Chai defeated, it's time for Ryo to make his way onto the boat and head towards Hong Kong. And that's it. That's Shenmue. It is one of the most ambitious video games ever made. Is it perfect? No. It has its flaws, and it's certainly a relic of its time. But what it lacks in technicals, it excels in realism, heart, and forklift driving. The story's good, even if the pacing can feel a bit all over the place. Free combat is serviceable and a product of its time. It hasn't aged well. The characters are all fun, even the random locals walking around have some nuggets of joy from time to time. But all in all, I love this game, and I hope if you've made it to the end of this video, that you enjoyed our time together discussing one of my favorite games. Hey, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it with me and watch this video. I truly appreciate you. This is something a little different. I'm trying to change things up here on the channel, so I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed the video, maybe think about going down, clicking that subscribe button, the like button, and ringing the notification bell if you want more videos like this in the future. As always, thank you to our members Ahead of the Curve, Notch Johnson, Bogwater Cryptid, Michael Roberts, Wafflecopter, Fourth in a Dynasty, and Little Schizomaster. I love you, I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.